our next guest has reported on drug gangs, prison life, wars, and even swingers clubs, but her new documentary series focuses on a much more important subject, which is what should we eat? Takeout with Lisa Ling is on HBO Max. Please welcome Lisa Ling. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a very, very long time.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. You were on The View last week, where you used to be one of the regular hosts,
Yes.
and you kind of filled in, and they,
Yes.
I don't know, they kill people off, and then you got to bring in new people, right?
I guest hosted for a week, and I'm so glad I don't do it every day.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
Well, and the reason is because, you know, you really have to express your opinion so vociferously on that show. And in the age of social media, you're just scrutinized so severely. And so
Every word is, yes.
Everything, everything. Right. But I had a great time. And on Monday, my first day, I got into a debate with some of the ladies about when Joe Biden called Peter Doocy of Fox a stupid SOB. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And they were saying, well, he apologized, it's okay. And I said, no, that is not behavior becoming of a president, right? And it was a little bit of a debate, and it got written up like Lisa Ling's causing chaos on The View. I'm like, see, exactly the reason. Because I get along great with the women, although during a commercial break, Joy did tell me that I was talking too much, so.
Joy told you to shut your mouth. Don't you think maybe they have too many people on the show? Like, how many? I mean, no one gets to talk a lot of the time,
Yeah,
right?
it is really difficult to get a word in edgewise. I did a little bit better this time. I mean, I was 26 when I did the show the first time around. It was 20 years.
How long were you on that show?
I was on 3 years.
And when you were on that show, what happened? Now, Prince used to watch the show, correct? Which is strange, but I also know that Prince would watch a lot of television, and he was very kind of tuned into what was going on.
What are you getting at?
I was getting at he was particularly tuned into what was going on with you, right?
So maybe.
Maybe. What was your first contact with Prince?
Okay, so again, this was 20 years ago. I was in my 20s, and one day, our assistant gets a call from a man who says, yes, he would like to speak with Miss Ling. And our assistant's like, who's he? What are you talking about? And he kept going, he would like to speak to her. Finally, he said, the artist formerly known as Prince would like to speak to Lisa. And so, knowing how much I loved Prince, she said, okay, well, here's her cell phone number. I mean, she wouldn't ordinarily give it out, but she knew I loved Prince.
Well, it seems like a normal call. Why wouldn't you give out?
Exactly. So he gets on the phone, and I hear this voice, you know, this kind of soft voice, and it was him. I could tell clearly. And he asked me if I wanted to go to the TLC concert with him. So I'm like, yes, I would love to. And so he said, I'm going to send a car to pick you up, come to my hotel, ask for Karl Marx, and they'll let you come up to my room. He registered as Karl Marx. So I'm nervous because I'm the biggest Prince fan. I go up, he opens the door, and you know he's a pretty diminutive guy, and he looked at my shoes and he said, oh, I really like your shoes. It felt like he wanted to try them on, but I thought that would be weird. So anyway, so we went to the show. It was amazing, and then we went back to his room, and I wasn't really concerned that he was going to try anything because it was when he was going through his like Jehovah's Witness stage, so I felt pretty confident it'd be okay. And so we ended up talking until 5 o'clock in the morning about philosophy and like having these very, very serious discussions. And that was it. I left Karl Marx's room and went back. And he asked me to come over the next day again. And so I went over there and we talked until 5 o'clock in the morning, had a great, incredibly stimulating discussion. And the next day I went back and was doing my job at The View. And I was talking on air about someone that I dated a long time ago. And I got a call at 5 o'clock the next morning, and it was Prince calling himself. The guy didn't call. And he said, who are you talking about? And I said, I was talking about someone in my past. Why were you talking about him? Like, as though we were, like we had a relationship or something, but I was talking about someone in my past, and that was it. He never called me. That was my relationship with Prince, yeah.
How very, very strange that is.
Strange. It was really strange. I mean, I still to this day think that he is the greatest artist who ever lived, but it was a little bit of a weird interaction. That we had
Yeah,
over
that
the
is
course of a couple of
super
days.
weird.
Yeah.
He didn't do that with any of the other hosts? He didn't call Joy or Whoopi or just you?
If he did, it was unbeknownst to me.
This show of yours is, I watched it today. I thought it was very interesting and really enjoyable to watch because there are a lot of food shows on television. This show is about the history associated with food, and even I saw the episode where, well, you went back to this restaurant that your family owned, and well, you tell that about.
Well, so the way I describe the show is it's an exploration of buried Asian American histories and culture through the lens of food, because everybody in America loves Asian food. You know, there are more Chinese restaurants in America than McDonald's, Wendy's, Pizza Hut combined. And these days you can find, Thai food or Bangladeshi food, all kinds of Asian food. But really, we don't really know much about Asian American history. I mean, when I grew up, I didn't have a single day of it. And restaurants have become such a pathway for so many Asian immigrants in this country. And my grandparents came to this country. They immigrated in the 40s, but my grandfather actually got educated in the 20s and 30s. He went to NYU for undergrad. He went to University of Colorado. But when they finally moved here in the 40s, he could not get hired to work in finance because he was Chinese. And so they ended up opening a Chinese restaurant in Sacramento, California. Neither he nor my grandmother knew how to cook, but it was one of the few ways that Chinese people could actually, own a business or have a business. So, yeah, and it's funny because
you took your family and to the restaurant for how long had it been since you'd been there?
I had never been to the restaurant.
Oh, you'd never been there?
They sold it before I was born, and my grandmother, I grew up with her, and she never wanted me to cook because for her, the restaurant was about survival, and she wanted me to do something else.
Yeah, she said that her first job there was as a kid, waiting for people to come to the door and running to the kitchen to tell them you have customers.
Yeah, that was my aunt.
Your aunt, sorry, yes.
Yeah, and so...
It's a good-looking family, by the way, just overall. I was like, wow, my family's a mess.
Well, thank you. It's funny because my grandparents in the 50s, their restaurants served food that appealed to a non-Chinese clientele. They didn't use chopsticks. They didn't have chopsticks in the restaurant. And so I tried egg foo young and chop suey for the first time in my life while I was shooting this series.
And how did you like it? Now, this area of Los Angeles is an interesting spot. Boyle Heights, which is a Latino community primarily now. It used to be a Chinese community, right? Is that
Actually,
correct?
A Japanese community. So,
Japanese, yeah.
So one of the episodes of our show, Takeout, takes place in Boyle Heights. Hi, Guillermo.
Don't be rude, Guillermo.
And so we did an entire episode back in Boyle Heights. There's one Japanese restaurant left, and we featured a young woman's pop-up called East Los Musubi because her grandfather and grandmother, her grandfather was Japanese and grandmother was Mexican. And so she has this pop-up that's like a fusion of Mexican and Japanese
and this
food.
is what we're going to eat right here.
Exactly. So this is the Hot Cheeto Musubi.
Wow.
And
so this is like Japanese and Mexican.
Japanese and Mexican.
And
so
stoner
basically,
food, basically.
Yes, what it is, it's rice, seaweed, Spam, and hot Cheeto.
You know what? I've had this at Hawaiian restaurants, grilled Spam, and I like it.
But the hot Cheeto is the homage to her Mexican roots.
Is that really homage to Mexican roots?
Is it, Guillermo?
It does taste
she
good.
says it is.
You know,
It's so good.
Yeah, it's good, right? East Los Musubi, if you're in LA, check it out.
well, the show, now I'm eating, is called Takeout with Lisa Ling. You want some Musubi?
I don't want to mess up my lipstick, but trust me, it's delicious.
It's on HBO MAX now. Lisa Ling, everybody. Thank you, Lisa. We'll be back with Alan Stone. Thanks for watching. If you liked that video, click the subscribe button. And if you didn't like it, well, you hurt my feelings.